Welcome, this is Ben Zinn for nextlevelguitar.com. We're going to take a look at some approaches to jamming and improvising over this medium blues track in A. A lot of fun. We're going to give you some cool examples, some cool licks that you can play over this jam track. So our jam track that we're talking about today is in the key of A minor. It's following a 12-bar blues format. So briefly, we want to take you through the chord changes that are happening. Our one chord in the key is an A minor chord. We spend 4 measures on that chord. Now we go to a D minor chord. That's what we would call our 4 chord in the key of A. And I'm going to spend 2 measures on that chord. Then I'm back to the A minor chord for 2 measures. Now we go up to an E minor for only 1 measure, to a D minor for 1 measure, to an A minor for 1 measure, and on the turnaround we hit this guy, the staple, the E7 sharp 9. So good to be aware of those chord changes as we're playing through our jam track. Now as we move into what I would call phase 2 of jamming over this blues jam track, what we want to start to do is to be aware of when the chord changes happen and start thinking of ways that we can play along with the chord changes or mark the chord changes with our jamming and our note selection. It's a great idea to be aware of where all the notes of each chord are as you're playing over them. So what do I mean by this? Well, when we're playing over our A minor chord, there are certain notes that are in that chord that are also in the scale. And these function as really safe landing spots for us as we're creating our licks. Think about this. The notes of the chord, if you play them, are always going to sound safe and sound resolved. And the other notes inside the scale can function as connecting notes or to build tension with your lines. Once you get into this style of playing, it really opens up some doors for you when you're jamming, because now you can sort of move between the safe notes and the not so safe notes. This is through practicing our arpeggios and seeing exactly how they overlay with our scales. So for example, if I have my first possession pentatonic box and I have my A minor arpeggio, I can see that all of those notes are clearly in my pentatonic scale, but there's some other ones that aren't. And when I go to these notes, it's going to help me build tension in my playing. So I might start out a line like this, playing arpeggio notes that fit with the chord, and go to this note, which is not necessarily in my chord. Sometimes it is, but it builds more tension there. And when I land on that note, while I'm on the A minor chord, that note's not in the chord, so it's going to create tension. This is good for us in our jamming, creating this idea of tension and release. We're going to build the tension through our note selection. So by being aware of the arpeggio notes as they overlay against your scale, we're able to tell a story in our playing, in our improvising, by deciding if we want to create tension or a resolution. And look at what happens when we switch to the D minor. In that position. Now notice what happens here. Some of these notes are inside of my A pentatonic scale and some are not. This all of a sudden becomes very important for us because I have this F note which doesn't exist inside my pentatonic scale, but it is in the chord that I'm playing over when I play over the D minor. So if we never looked at our chord notes there, we'd never play that really juicy, tasty note that we can use over the D minor. Now when I'm playing over D minor, I might use that note inside some of my lines. Something like this, for example. Or here's a position for E minor in the same neighborhood here. Here's my E note just from before. We're just building we're filling in the rest of the notes of the chord compared to what we did earlier. And if we look at where those notes are compared to the A pentatonic scale, we see that there's another note that pops in outside of it. We have that B note now. So what does this mean? It just means that it gives you more choices to sound like you're playing over the chords when these things happen. Let's take a moment to take you through some examples of some licks that are going to highlight the chord changes through use of the chord notes as we move through the changes. So we can see there the basic idea is to still use our scales to create our licks, but maybe we're going to highlight certain notes that are within the chord to help create a sense of resolution. That's so much fun when we're jamming, everyone, is to create that sense of tension and then go to that really nice sounding note that sort of wraps it up with our licks. So fun concept to play with. All starts with just kind of seeing where those chord tones are. We're starting to see as we're looking at the chord changes that they're going to affect what we decide to play. We're going to play some different notes or maybe some different scales as we're playing over the jam track when the chords change. But this whole idea of playing against the changes, it just gives you more choices. That's the basic idea. We like choices when we're improvising. We like exploring new territory and pushing ourselves to see if we can create new sounds. This whole idea of playing over the chords, that's all we're thinking about here, is just opening some new doors for giving ourselves some new lick choices over the changes. And just remember, this is all a jumping off point. We're just trying to present some concepts for you so that you guys out there can make them your own and come up with your own examples. You know, come up with your own ways of playing over this. And most importantly, have fun, get lost in the track, enjoy these jam tracks. We have so many others in other styles and related to certain artists, so be sure to check those out too. Once again, I want to say thanks so much. My name is Ben Zinn for NextLevelGuitar.com, and I'll see you next time.